Hello, this is Martin Gore from Depeche Mode.
Hi, this is Dave Gahan from Depeche Mode, and you are listening to
My Nerd World.
And welcome to it. I'm your host, Jon Justice, Depeche Mode, the podcast. Here for a quick bonus episode this week. If you missed the show on Thursday, be sure you go back and check out the previous episode. But there was a rumor that dropped that I didn't see until after I put up Thursday's show, and I was thinking I'd wait until the next episode when Rob Rom from the Depeche Mode Global Fan Group joins the show to talk about this, but I also had an amusing anecdote story that I wanted to share as well, so I thought that I would pop down on a Sunday morning and share this news with you. And again, if you have any questions or anything you'd like for me and Rob Rom to discuss next week, be sure to get those emails in, TalkShowNerd@gmail.com. But let's get to this rumor that, again, I found after this week's episode. Somebody posted on the Depeche Mode Global Fan Group that there was potentially going to be a Devotional 2K remaster release. I'm assuming this will be on Blu-ray, much in the same way that we got Strange and Strange 2. This would have a new audio upgrade. I think 2.0 and 5.1 would be available on it. This is all the information that we have so far, but there has been some other fans who have pointed to previous rumors that Anton Corbijn's film was being looked at for a potential re-release, much like in the same way, again, that we got Strange and Strange 2. Clearly, the label and the band have found that they can bring in, a decent amount of money based off of, how much it costs to produce these types of releases. And arguably speaking, I think Devotional was probably one of the most popular Depeche Mode concert releases. I find it a little strange that we still haven't heard word about the Memento Mori physical release of that tour, which, again, has me worried that those rumors of people who said they talked to Anton, who had said that there wasn't going to be a release for the tour, which I still would just find shocking if that be the case. And as I've mentioned many times, there was footage that was filmed and apparently a documentary or something that was supposed to be done for the shows in Mexico. So we're still waiting on all of that. The 2004 most recent release of the DVD for Devotional is pretty awesome. With all of the extras, the tracks that weren't included, especially originally included, especially on the initial American VHS release, getting released on that multiple disc 2004 set that came out. I'm not sure that I'm clamoring for a Blu-ray release of Devotional. I will certainly purchase it to have the best possible quality, but considering the fact that Anton Corbijn shot that on film, it already has a graininess to it that we'll get a bit of an upgrade with the Blu-ray release, but it's not going to be something crystal clear, nor is it supposed to be like, say, what we got with the Sounds of the Universe tour release live in Barcelona. Again, they must have found that they can bring in a decent amount of money by going and producing these, and I imagine that the way the production is done nowadays is a lot different than what it was before. A lot of it may even be somewhat on demand, where before they would go and have to print up a whole bunch, hope people bought them, and ship them out to stores, and a lot of times, if people didn't, they would just sit there on the shelves, whereas now almost everything is purchased exclusively online. So what are your thoughts on this? Does this get you excited? Do you need an upgrade from the 2004 DVD Devotional release? And if they're doing this, is there anything else apart from The World We Live In and Live in Hamburg that I haven't discussed on the show that could be updated and you'd like to see re-released? Feel free to go ahead and drop me an email, talkshownerd@gmail.com, or always, if you're enjoying this on YouTube, you can leave a comment there as well. So I wanted to share this little anecdote with you. Just a quick story that one of the reasons why I started this podcast in the first place, right? To talk about my fandom of Depeche Mode, tell the stories of how Depeche Mode has, impacted my life. It's the soundtrack of our lives, as we've talked about so often. So I had something that happened on Friday that I think you can probably appreciate, especially if you are around my age. I'm 52, and have said many times on the show I discovered the band before 85, but really didn't start getting into them until I first heard Shake the Disease on K-Rock Radio in Los Angeles in 86. But it's those years, and more specifically, starting around 87, 88, and then on through like 94 that I want to talk about for just a moment. These are the, ages where I started to grow up. I became an adult. I went to the 101 Rose Bowl Music for the Masses show when I was 15 years old in 1988, and grew up and was growing up with the band at right of the height of their musical superpowers. And I remember so many times where I would hop in the car, I would grab whatever mood I was in, I would grab the Depeche Mode album for that moment, and I'd toss it in the CD player in my car, and I'd be off, or cassette. I would be, heading off to a friend's house, right? Life without the internet, where you actually had to go to meet friends. Before that, getting on my bicycle and listening to, I'll never forget, listening to Music for the Masses. Riding my bicycle up to my friend Jerry's house, listening on my Walkman, having my headphones on. And as you get older, of course, you go tape into CD. But you'd get in your car, especially when you're going to the concerts, right? You toss a tape in or a CD in, whatever album you decided, whatever mood you were in, and you would be heading off to your event. I mean, these are the moments where we talk about it being the soundtrack of our lives, and just amazing, incredible moments that, we would be growing up with the band in these times. Okay, so Friday, this is what I'm talking about. Friday, I was heading down to the Minnesota State Fair, biggest fair of the year, huge event here in Minnesota, and once a year I go down and do a meet and greet with listeners of the show. And I decided that this time I partnered up with a guest who's an author who has a book out, and we were going to set up, and we did at a booth called the Minnesotan. It's a clothier locally who has a big booth there, and so it was kind of a group of us known within Minnesota media for this meet and greet. And it's the first 2 days of the fair, and I didn't anticipate having as much difficulty getting a parking spot because I never had this issue before going to the fair, but I did on Friday. Unbeknownst that I was going to be running into this issue, when I got into my car, I started heading down there, and I decided to listen to Memento Mori in its entirety. I hadn't done that in a while. The disc has remained in my car since I've purchased my automobile. It hasn't gone anywhere. As a matter of fact, the only time it's been removed from my CD player in the car is when the other day I decided to listen to Music for the Masses. So I went and grabbed the remastered disc and tossed it into the car. And as I've said before, the disc for Memento Mori just sounds vastly superior to listening to it through the Bluetooth of my phone on a playlist. It could just, be the fact that I think it sounds better, but I legitimately feel like it's louder and it's a lot clearer. So I'm driving down to the Minnesota State Fair, and I'm just listening to this incredible album, Memento Mori. I'm about halfway through, and I get close to the fair, and now I'm sitting in traffic. People milling about, all heading to the fair, record numbers for these first opening days, so much so that I ended up having difficulty even finding a parking spot. I had to circle the fair twice before I ended up driving into a neighborhood and paying $20 to park on somebody's lawn so I can get in, and I was late to my meet and greet. I bring all this up because, again, I'm about halfway through the album, and I'm sitting here in traffic, and suddenly I'm back in my late teens and my early 20s. And I'm not listening to an album from that time period. I'm listening to the album from this time period, the Memento Mori era. And I'm in my late teens and early 20s again. It's a beautiful summer day outside, slightly overcast. I'm in a line of cars waiting to go to an event. It's not a Depeche Mode concert. I know this. I'm not fooling myself. But I'm taken back to all those shows that my friends and I went to listening to a Depeche Mode album before going and spending a day at the venue, getting there early, being among the other fans. And once again, in this moment, Depeche Mode became the soundtrack for my life. The songs took on further meaning and new meaning. The music sort of blended in with the atmosphere of what was going on around me. I opened up the sunroof and rolled the window down, listening to the people walking by and talking while I'm blasting, probably annoying everybody around me, the album. At this moment, I think before We Drown came on, I think I was getting some weird looks from people, but I didn't care. I hadn't had a moment like that with a Depeche Mode album in a really, really long time. Now, my mind takes me back to those years between 88 and 94, from Music for the Masses, Violator, and Songs of Faith and Devotion. I'm sure that I've experienced this with albums since then, but I couldn't recall a time when I did. But in this moment, I was a young Depeche Mode fan again, and the music was speaking to me, sometimes in heartbreaking ways. Ghosts, again, my favorite song on the album. I put it right up there with Enjoy the Silence of songs that I enjoy. But that song reminds me of my beloved friend who I lost unexpectedly, my best friend, back in 2022, just a month or so after Fletch had passed away. And there's moments in that song that remind me of my buddy, of my best friend. You know, we say goodbye. I wasn't sad. You know, I was thinking about him and in my mind sort of celebrating him while listening to this song. But again, it speaks to the power of this band that we loved so much and grew up with. And as I was driving home, I decided to switch over to some other music to drive home and just, you know, let a playlist roll while I was, you know, thinking about my experience and looking forward to the weekend now that I'm done with my work. I ended up on Saturday morning putting together a special playlist of just a bunch of tracks that I typically don't listen to, and some live versions while I went and mowed the lawn. I was inspired afterwards because on Friday, because of this moment that I had with the album, on Friday I decided to watch 101. I don't think I did during this year's anniversary. Typically I watch it once a year, right around June the 18th, and I don't think I did this year. My buddy Matt had reached out to me a week or so before, and I think he was watching it. And so when I got home, the family went to go get pizza. I typically go with my wife, Melinda, to Costco to get pizza on a Friday, but it had been a long day, and I didn't want to go out, so she ended up heading out with our 17-year-old. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to grab myself an early drink, and I'm going to watch some of 101. And I watched it over the course of the past two nights, all because of this moment. And just, again, a movie that I've seen I don't know how many times. I have the whole thing memorized, and yet enjoyed it just as much, if not more, than when I first saw it in the theater when it was released. So there's an anecdote for the masses. When I was driving home initially from the fair, I was thinking about coming home and immediately hopping online and recording the podcast, and I said, nah, I'll save it. But as I've been going through the weekend and thinking about next week's show with Rob Rom from the Depeche Mode Global Fan Group, I thought, you know what, let's go ahead and get the devotional rumor out of the way. I'll talk about it briefly with Rob and get his thoughts on Thursday, but I wanted to share that anecdote with you now rather than forget about sharing it with you or doing it on the next episode. So I know that you can relate to that, and I hope that you enjoyed it because it was a real special moment for me, and it speaks to just how amazing this band is and how much they mean to me and to you, and you know how it is the soundtrack of our lives even after all of these years. So there's your anecdote for the masses. Only a Depeche Mode fan can appreciate this, which is why I shared it with you. Listen, I hope you're doing well this weekend. It's been a great weekend for me. There'll be a new episode again coming up on Thursday. If you don't subscribe to the show yet, Be sure you do on whatever podcast platform you listen to the show, or, of course, on YouTube if you enjoy the show there as well. And drop me an email, talkshownerd@gmail.com. I do have some listener feedback, but I'll be saving that for Thursday's show. As always, I hope wherever you are, you're happy, you're healthy, you're safe. Thanks so much for checking out the episode. And if you want to support My Nerd World and Depeche Mode, the podcast, I hope that if you like reading science fiction, because I'm a massive science fiction fan, I've written a 7-book science fiction series. It's called EMBARK. It's available on Amazon.com. I hope you'll take a moment and go and check it out. Maybe pick it up for yourself, a friend, or a family member who enjoys sci-fi. As Earth faces its end, follow pilots Taft, Katha, and their crew on a journey of survival across the galaxy as they fight for their future among the stars. Amazon.com, EMBARK. And it's great for ages 11 plus. Totally appropriate for kids, even though I wrote it for adults. You can pick it up in ebook, Kindle Unlimited, hardcover, paperback, or audiobook, produced and narrated by yours truly. All right. I'll talk to you again on Thursday. God bless. Thank you so much for checking out the episode as always. Bye.
Hello, this is Martin Gore from Depeche Mode.
Hi, this is Gahan from Depeche Mode, and you are listening to
My Nerd World.